Our guest today is Jeannette Dupuis, and Jeannette is a lakefront property owner here in the Haliburton Highlands and someone that has a real commitment to lake health. And we welcome you, Jeannette. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's nice to be here.
You are in Haliburton County, and you've been here for a few years now. And
yes.
Maybe we could start by finding out, Jeannette, what attracted you to Haliburton County and the area that you're in right now?
Well, when I moved to Ontario when I was in my mid-20s, and I started hanging around with a group that went to a cottage in the Haliburton area every weekend. And I'd grown up in a family that wasn't very outdoorsy, so this was kind of my first exposure to something like this, and I was amazed, and it became my dream immediately that someday I wanted to have my own cottage, and ideally, I thought I'd love to live up there. And
Wow.
so, and then shortly after that, I started doing canoe trips as well in Algonquin and in the Kawarthas. I've always loved this area, and I feel so lucky that several years ago, we were able to make that dream come true.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And tell me, living there on the lake, what are the things that are most important to you about the environment that you're in?
Well, swimming is my biggest passion. As soon as it becomes anywhere near warm enough to swim, I tend to be in the lake at least once a day, if not more. I have a dog, and we go down to the lake every single morning when we get up, and we both sit there and we look, and we love to watch like the ducks and the loons, and sometimes we get lucky and see a blue heron, and the fish. My dog is obsessed with fish too. We'll both look, and if either one sees a fish, we'll make a little noise, and the other one will come rushing over to check out the fish. And just, the sense of peace that you get from being around the trees, the forest, and the lake. I just love it so much. It's proven that being near, they call it blue space, water is actually so good for your health overall, your sense of peace.
Well, it sounds like it turned out to be a perfect match for you. That's wonderful. Now, let's go back to when you were buying your cottage. At that time, were you aware of something called the blue-green algae?
I wasn't at the beginning, and then there was a lake in the Muskoka region that kept having properties come up that were within our price range, and they seemed to be a lot more cottage and property and beach and everything than what I would have thought would be in our price range. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that they had actually experienced blue-green algae blooms several years running. I don't even know how many, but then I started to research about blue-green algae and was quite horrified by everything I read, especially as I have a dog, and if my dog were to swim in the blue-green algae, he could die. I started finding articles from different provinces and different states where dogs had died after swimming for like 20 minutes, and then within 30 minutes something happens to their nervous system and they die. Anyway, so it became a real concern for me, and when I was looking, I made water quality a priority. It was so important to me to find a lake that had a good water quality record. And so I found that. I found a lake that had pristine water quality history. And unfortunately, we experienced blue-green algae last November.
Now, when that happened, when you heard there was blue-green algae on your lake, how did you react to that?
Well, I didn't even really hear it. I went down one morning with my dog, and the lake had some green scum here and there, not, all over, but it was just not something I'd seen. And of course, knowing about blue-green algae, my heart sank. I was like, oh my God, please no, please no. And so then I came back up to the cottage with my dog and put him here. And then I Googled to find out, is there some way I could test myself to see if it's blue-green algae, or maybe this is normal. I'd only been up here a couple of years. Maybe this was some, normal occurrence. So I read that if you got a mason jar and you collected some water from just beneath the surface and you put it in the fridge overnight, and the next day, if the green algae had separated and risen to the top in sort of a ring, then it was probably blue-green algae. And if it didn't, if it sank to the bottom, it was probably normal algae. So I did that, and sure enough, it rose to the top. It was blue-green algae, and yes. And then we started to get communications from our lake steward regarding it, and they had it tested. We're very lucky. Anyway,
that would be a horrible moment for you, and I'm sure for everyone else on the lake as well.
Yes, it was so awful. I really couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe it. So I started to do all kinds of research into what I could do, what could be done to stop it. Is it too late once it occurs? Our lake association really hopped to life as well, and they started sending out great communications to keep everybody in the loop. They got on testing right away. They've really been quite amazing overall. And yes, and I basically found all these things that I could have been doing the whole time, but that I wasn't, because I didn't really know. I mean, I didn't really know what types of things would cause blue-green algae. I just knew that I wanted to avoid being on a lake that had it. I didn't realize that any lake could get a bloom,
mm-hmm.
and that once you've had one, there's a very good chance you're going to have more. And yes, I was quite shocked.
When that happened and everybody started reacting to it, did that change how you were living on the lake?
Yes, it did. Well, because I did a bunch of research, and our lake association sent out some educational information in a letter as well. But basically, there were all kinds of just even little things that I had been doing wrong. The most important, of course, was to have a good working septic. And we did have that. At least we had one when we first took over the cottage. I don't know if we do for sure anymore, because there were lots of little things I was doing that I didn't know could have a negative impact. One was, we didn't worry about our water use. We have well water. We didn't worry about whether we were washing the dishes at the same time as having a shower or doing laundry. But apparently the amount of water that floods into your septic at one time can have a real impact on how it's able to actually do its work. And so that could have been causing more effluent or things to be seeping into the lake and the tile bed. We were also using all kinds of cleansing products, like regular cleaning products that had chlorine in them. I had no idea that chlorine was so damaging. And we were using antibacterial soap left, right, and center. The pandemic, especially once the pandemic started. And of course, antibacterial soap kills all bacteria on your hands, but it also kills all the healthy bacteria in your septic. And so that would stop it from working really well. Our dog, my brother and I sort of have this place jointly. It's divided into two cottages, 2 washrooms, 2 kitchens, 2 everything. And so his dog is here too. And if the dogs were to go to the washroom and do their business in the foresty part of our property, we didn't worry about it at all. But apparently feces are a huge carrier of phosphorus. And so that's a lot of phosphorus going into the lake. As soon as we have rain runoff, we're on a slope as well going down to the lake. So that was another thing we started doing differently. Down at the waterfront, there were some water lilies in the water, and I wanted a more clear swim path. I know it sounds so horrific now, but I actually cleared away some of the water lilies to have a clear swim path to come through on one side. I didn't even need to do that. And now I've ordered all kinds of native plants and shrubs to put along the shoreline. I would definitely never touch anything in the water again, but to put on the shoreline, because apparently if you plant shrubs and native plants near the shoreline, as the rainwater brings all of the bad things down that could cause blue-green algae, it filters it out and stops a great deal of it. So we're doing lots of little things that I didn't know about before.
It sounds like your learning curve was pretty steep once you got into it.
It was, unfortunately. And I just wonder how many other people on our lake, I mean, how many people don't know about this? Maybe lots do, but maybe lots don't realize. And oh my gosh, like, if I could go back and not be doing any of those things, anything that I might have been doing to contribute to having a blue-green algae bloom, I would so change it in a heartbeat.
Well, and overall, all the things you're talking about help the lake health generally. Even if you don't get a blue-green algae bloom, you're still helping the health of the lake, which affects the fish, affects other aquatic life, and water lilies and plants that grow in the lake. So it
Yes.
certainly, these are all incremental steps that people can take. And I would gather that you're pretty passionate about it now.
I am. I feel like a huge cautionary tale. And not that we caused the blue-green algae on our lake. There are many contributors, but certainly we contributed by not doing all the things that we could be doing to avoid it.
And has your lake association got in behind all this with all the property owners to try and get everybody on board and try and prevent any future blooms?
Yes, and there are ongoing campaigns and efforts by our lake association and within our community overall to try to educate people, because a big part of it is education, just knowing. And you know, all of the information was already out there, but sometimes, sadly, if you're not impacted by it, you don't pay as much attention as you could.
Mm-hmm. We talked to Paul McInnes about the Be Sure campaign, and those ads are running both on radio as well as newspaper. And they're pretty good learning devices, aren't they?
Yes, yes, I'm really enjoying those. One came on the radio the other day, and it just it really drives the message home. And I went on the website, and it has some great information as well as a petition actually that I signed, and I got my brother and family and other people to sign as well. That's in support of a shoreline preservation bylaw that will actually put into law that people have to maintain healthy shorelines. And it's only because we all want to have healthy, clean lakes that we can swim in. You know, if blue-green algae occurs year after year, it will ultimately kill the fish. It will kill the birds. It will stop us from being able to swim in the water. Me and my dog, our friends, I mean, just the whole lifestyle I envisioned by moving up here will be very different if we don't have a lake that we can enjoy.
And on top of all that, of course, there's an economic reality too, that this can affect your property value.
Yes, there is. Well, looking at the lake I referred to earlier in the Muskoka region, where all kinds of properties were coming available at prices that were much lower than what they should have been. And it was just because of blue-green algae. That is, you know, a hard, cold reality. I mean, I hope to be here for the long haul. And so selling wasn't something I was thinking of before. And now I don't even know if we'd be able to afford to sell, because who knows how much money, if blue-green algae were to continue, who knows how much we would get for our cottage.
Can I take it that you're going to be paying particular close attention to the development on the shoreline preservation bylaw?
Yes, I will. I'm going to try to get involved in my community in any way I can to try to help everybody, to help all of us enjoy the wonderful beauty that we're so lucky to have in our lakes.
Summing up our conversation, Jeannette, what would your message be to lake property owners in Haliburton County?
No lake is exempt from the danger of having toxic blue-green algae. Sorry, that's my dog. Come to their lake. No, doesn't matter how historically clean and clear and pristine your lake has been. Climate change combined with other things can easily bring blue-green algae bloom to your lake too. Do everything you can to stop, prevent, or mitigate this, because once it's here, it's apparently so much more difficult. It's much easier to prevent than it is to stop once it's arrived. So do what you can now.
Jeannette, thanks for sharing these thoughts. It's good to chat with you today, and I wish you a bloom-free summer.
Thank you so much, Mike. And yes, I wish a bloom-free summer for everybody in Haliburton.
Our guest today has been Jeannette Dupuis, and Jeannette is a lakefront property owner in Haliburton County.
Thank you, Mike.